Hey guys, Matthew here once again. I want to make a bit of a video talking about the league mechanic as a whole, some discussion around that, and also my character, where it's gone in the past couple of days, just as a wanding little thing. So I wanted to just like kind of map a bit and talk about the league mechanic at the same time, go over it to some extent, and have some opinions, discuss some stuff, and then after that go over some of the things I think about my character. So to begin with, the league mechanic is it's kind of intuitive on its surface. Like, you know, you have some autonomy over your map, you have some chance to get some good stuff and some stuff to rearrange with your monsters, and some chance to get some bad stuff that can make your maps a little more uncomfortable, a little bit shitter. So if you don't care about any of this, you just pop it, smash it, and it doesn't really matter. And it shouldn't be too impactful to your overall gameplay. It shouldn't make things much worse or much better. It'll just be kind of nothing. But with this, you can kind of have some level of autonomy over your maps, what's in them, what you're going to get kind of buffed, dropped, etc. It's not hugely impactful, but it's not a huge negative either, like I think a lot of people have been mentioning. So as you just saw there, I had quite a few good amount of results there, and that does tend to happen if you actually spec into it. So if you're getting nothing but negatives, which you probably will be if you haven't spec much into it, you need to spec into some of this stuff over here. Modifiers are higher, and 20% chance increased devoted modifiers. So the devoted, I think, are the good ones in this case, and that's more what you're looking for. So I've also spec'd some of the others, and I've spec'd like some of this over here. So I've spec'd some of the good stuff to make sure that for my mapping, I get more good than I do get bad. The problem that a lot of people are currently looking at is they're getting almost, nothing but bad stuff, and the reason is they haven't spec'd into it, but also I think people are kind of overstating how bad some of the bad stuff is. Let me just take care of this piece of shit temporal. How bad some of the bad stuff is. So they see that it's got like 1,000% life or something, and that's just ridiculous. When in reality, it's not really any worse than almost anything else. And by almost anything else, I mean previous league mechanics and previous situations we've had, from things like Affliction, things like Crucible, Calandra, all of these. The problem we've run into here is they've given us direct numbers to what the bad stuff is. So like 1,000% increased life on a few packs of mobs, or on a mob from a pack or two. Sounds crazy, but it's not really anything in the scope of previous stuff. The previous stuff was like, if you had a triple juiced Affliction mob, you most likely were coming across something that was 95% damage reduction, like 200% increased damage, and 200% increased attack and movement speed, which is just ridiculous. Whereas here, it's just a little bit more here or there, and it's not really all that bad. It just feels kind of bad seeing those numbers. And I'd say the things that most people are really running into problems, not problems, but problems with enjoying the fucking league mechanic, is it's just not giving you enough in return. Both in terms of the crafting and in terms of the drops. The drops really don't seem to be too impactful with what you're getting out of this shit, and the crafting is pretty difficult to engage with. Once again, I was going to say the crafting is fairly intuitive on its surface, but to actually make it worthwhile, it takes work, and it takes a lot of fucking know-how in the end. So far, as you can see, I've spec'd into Blight. That's one of the things I'm doing, and that's still pretty rewarding. Pretty much any mechanic you spec into at the moment fully, and then go, some level of farm with it, it's going to be rewarding. It's just about, making sure you farm it in a practical enough way, and spec it pretty much fully. So as I was saying, what was I saying? Messing with this type of shit, it's pretty currently abrasive. I do like the word abrasive recently, so I've been kind of overusing it, especially in terms of PoE. It does feel kind of abrasive, like you are just, to make something, you have to put a lot of work into it. To click the corpse thing, the guy wheels out, it takes a bunch of time, you are usually full on your situation. The actual UI thing covers up the loot that you might otherwise want, so if you don't care about this corpse, you're like kind of fucked because it's just annoying. And then the end result that you are trying to craft is usually going to be absolutely garbage unless you know exactly how to engage with the mechanic, which is a huge problem for people that want to just play the fucking game, right? Instead of figure out the best way to play the game. So with all that said, I'll go over the actual mechanic in a bit for crafting as well, but yeah, you can see you get a lot of this stuff, and then the point I was trying to make to begin with is that it is kind of intuitive on the surface, but the reality is that it takes a lot more work than you would have initially thought to get a result. If it would simply, you know, put in a few life rolls or something, it wants life rolls, or you want life rolls on an item, put in a few life rolls. If you want some resist, put in some resist, and then you get a nice resist life item out of it, great. And that's how you would understand it as a new player, as a new system. You'd be like, oh shit, this is, you know, an easy way of getting what I want. Whereas the reality is you have to go above and beyond what you would think you need to do and take a lot of work into putting that item together to even have a shot of what you actually want. So you complete your map route, you then go over to your Necropolis because you're pretty fucking full on everything. Go to your Necropolis and you have to interact with a pretty uncomfortable system of clicking corpses and stuff and trying to figure out exactly what you want just to craft a single item. And typically the best results yielded from pretty much filling up the entire graveyard and then min-maxing the shit out of the mechanic to end up getting something good. So like I said, on surface it seems like it's actually pretty easy because you want this, you get this, you want that, you get that, and it's pretty easy to understand. Problem comes in that if you don't do well over what you would have thought you need, you're not going to get a good result, and then it feels bad. So yeah, the system currently, you have to do a lot to create a good item, like, you know, thousands of % of increased the mod you want, lots and lots of increased of the tier on the mods you want, disabling all kinds of other mods that you don't want, and the end result can be pretty good. But it's just so much work for like one item that doesn't feel worth it. That's basically the problem. It is pretty uncomfortable to actually deal with, which I fully believe they're going to try and make better, and I'm sure they'll try and buff how easy it is to craft things and how much stuff you get out of it, but it's very uncomfortable to actually deal with it at the moment, and that means that it's not very fun and it's not very worth doing because you could be doing something else. As far as like actually in your way, I don't think it's a big deal. Like I said, I think people are kind of overblowing the difficulty of this thing. You just, you know, pop a map, you pick some stuff that you want or don't want, and the negatives, like this thing has 75, you know, physics code and 10 code pin. That's only going to be on like one type of pack, and you can, you know, choose to make it on a easier pack, and it's realistically a lot less offensive to your character than almost every previous League mechanic for the past year or two, which have so many worse modifiers, but they're not something you know the exact numbers on. And that's why this one would feel like it's got a bit of a difficulty spike here or there, when in reality it's really not anywhere near as bad as an Affliction or a Crucible or a Calandra. Those things would have had insane numbers that people would have freaked the fuck out about if they knew the actual numbers behind. So that's a bit of stuff about the lead mechanic. In general, I will say I don't mind it for mapping. It actually can be quite fun and just a bit of an addition to your overall mapping system. For the crafting, it is very much not fun to deal with, and only barely worthwhile if you go very heavily into it, which most people will not do. And then I expect it to get better, because there is a lot of people complaining about it. There is a lot of eyes that are going to be seeing these complaints, and they're going to want to make it better. The other big problem and issue, I think, is that we're going straight from Affliction, which was a league that had huge amounts of rewards, once you figured out how to how to, you know, farm it and all that. But even then, right from the get-go, you got some cool shit. With this league mechanic, you get basically nothing. You get to craft a few things, maybe a few cool items while you're leveling, if you're lucky. If you're not, you get pretty close to nothing from the league mechanic throughout the entire time you're playing it. Whereas with Affliction, you had the ascendancies, and those were a big deal. Like, by level 15, you could have probably picked a second ascendancy and got some pretty good power out of it, especially if you're picking tinctures and gear sockets slots that give you lots of power. And that's been taken away, and it's pretty much been replaced by nothing for the most part, for most people, which feels pretty fucking bad, right? So that's why I'd say a lot of people are kind of mad about this thing at the moment, but I don't think the difficulty of it should be overblown the way it is. I do just think that the crafting mechanic as a whole should probably be complained about, and it should, in the end, get kind of buffed to be then better. So like I said, people have actually done this, they have interacted with it and made some pretty good items, and it's entirely possible. It's just that it's not very fun, and it's not very, you know, worth it for the most part. Like, if you want one specific item, like a weapon for an early build or something, yeah, you can work your way towards it. It'll probably take you like 6 hours of mapping to then have one shot at crafting this thing, and you might have a pretty good chance of getting exactly what you want, but it could also not work out and then just feel terrible. And interacting with the actual grave system feels not very nice, not very fun, and then you'd rather just be doing something else. So yeah, it's a bit of a bitter pill to swallow, especially since it's a mechanic you can't really disable. You just, you know, at best could ignore it, pop your map in, and just not give a shit about this and just enter map and go. And you should be okay, especially on softcore. It shouldn't be too in your way, and it shouldn't be too annoying. But the take-home messages are spec into this shit for some better mapping. Also, something up here if you want better corpses. Yeah, just wait till they buff shit, because they almost certainly will. So my opinions as a whole on the league mechanic, it's not the best, but for mapping, it feels kind of fun. For crafting, it feels kind of dog shit, but I think it'll get better. And if you actually want to engage with it, it's not too bad. It's just not very fun. And it is just a classic PoE problem where, you know, to give you something kind of nice, they want you to do a lot of learning and a lot of figuring out. And for the average person, this one has kind of missed the mark because it doesn't really give you much on the surface level if you just want to interact with it a little bit. So I expect more to happen, but for now, yep, it's kind of not the best. And I don't think, yeah, it should be too overblown as to how bad it is. It's just that it needs work, as most league mechanics do at the start. This one probably needs a bit more work than some of the others. So with that said, yep, back to my character a bit. I did just beef up my character in all many kinds of ways. Got a Piscator's, got Rat's Nest, managed to luckily 6-link a Restless Ward, and then started running these links here. So Spectrum, Sacred Wisp, Return Proj, Ice Bite, Trinity, and increase crit damage. The Ice Bite at the moment for my character isn't doing too much because I actually do have a lot of flat damage coming from the early hit of the Spectrum and also the Wrath. I'm still using my level 40 rings from literally 50 levels ago. I grabbed a +1 Frenzy Glove for like 5C, some resists, a Dark Rays for like 5C, and some resists and stuff over there. So nothing crazy happening, and the character's nothing too crazy either. But it's doing pretty well for like just general mapping. And I also did get a very lucky drop in the interrogation from like one of my first Delirium maps. So I did show that throughout almost the entirety of this character up to level 90, I didn't have this on, and I'd just be running around and actually shattering things, and it felt pretty damn clean. So pretty fun, you know, lots of shatters. I was using, instead of Skitterbots, I was running Herald of Ice this entire time, and it feels really crispy, right? Like, you are getting some seriously nice shatters, you're getting lots of explosions, you're getting all kinds of elemental cool visual on the early hit itself, because it's a new graphic and it's the wanding graphic, so it looks a lot cooler. Creates a bone ring. Well, that's different. So yeah, it's been feeling pretty good. My character's nothing too thick, so it's a little bit squish. It's got good evasion. It's got good, speedy playstyle, but it is a bit squish for, getting into the higher tiers. And I do think I'm going to end up changing to something like a raider eventually. From a raider into a Deadeye is what I meant to say. Because currently the raider situation, so yeah, that was obviously a white map, no one gives a fuck. The raider situation ain't bad to start with, and I wanted to do it just in case I was going to play Frenzy instead, and I might still dick around with that idea, but ultimately if we want to do just pure LE hit, Raid doesn't offer enough, especially since I don't think my point blank situation is particularly good. You would have probably noticed throughout the maps, I'm not that point blank against many mobs. I am just attacking from huge distances. So there's a good chance that I end up going into the Deadeye instead. And building similar to how I've built a Wander in the past, an early hit Wander. So we'd be going something like Far Shot, a couple extra proj, so we'd have 5 proj. We're going Gale Force and Focal Point, and also going into Crown of Eyes with some extra spell damage. So I'll end up replacing Piscators with something like this and this, 200, 300, 250 spell damage or some shit like that, and then getting a Crown of Eyes, so we've got like 300% increased damage from these 2 items, and then that'll be most of my increased damage, and we'll get all of our flat from the gem, from the Wrath, and the Ice Bite. Possibly do a bit of a Deadeye respec. For now, this has gotten me to, as far as it needs to, through maps, and I'm starting to do, red tiers and higher red tiers and ticking off corruption, and it's kind of working. But yeah, it is a bit of a rough 0 gear first character type of situation. We're getting there, we're trying, and this is what I've got so far. So if you wanted to follow along, that's the tree, and I'm still doing plenty of stuff with it, but for the Raider tree, it's very, travel heavy, and if I was a Deadeye, I'd end up dropping, I think, all of this and just localizing a bit more here and there, and then yeah, trying to make the whole situation work a bit better. So that's all I've kind of got to say for now. League mechanic, yep, a bit disappointing so far, but the rest of the game's still really good, and you can make it work for you at least a little bit here or there. It's just not comfortable to interact with. My character, I'm still happy with it. It's a little bit squish, just because of life total, but with all my frenzies up, I do have some good defense. And I'm still working at it, and I'll probably still play it for another day or two, and then I'll have to roll into Quin's EQ build, so that would be very painchamp. Hopefully you guys aren't having too bad of a time with the League mechanic. I think there is some good to be gotten out of it, and overall the game's still in a good state, as I, typically like to think. Yeah, hopefully you get quite a bit as lucky as I do in some cases, and are having enough fun to persist until we get some of the buffs that are no doubt going to be coming to the mechanic in the next week. Thank you very much for watching. See you guys next time.